welcome to today's episode. We have another great discussion and topic planned that ActiveProspect has assembled as we help the lead generation and performance marketing industry navigate the most recent FCC one-to-one consent rules, record-keeping requirements, and related updates to the TCPA, or Telephone Consumer Protection Act. We hope the content we are putting together will help you decode these changes with more confidence and a focus on compliance. Today's topic: prioritize notice and consent with innovative chat and text solutions. So first, some housekeeping notes. Our webinar platform, there is a chat icon and a questions icon. We encourage you to ask questions as we have someone monitoring them throughout the discussion. And please use the chat section for general comments and interactions with other participants. And use the question section if there are items you'd like to pose to us to answer. We'll leave time at the end to review and respond to questions. And we'll also have a brief survey at the end. And please let us know how we did and what else you'd like us to address in the future. Live links to the recording will be emailed out tomorrow morning for your reference and to share with your colleagues. Hello, I'm Benjamin Farrar. I'm the Director of Privacy, Security, and Compliance at ActiveProspect. And for the past 20 years, I've worked for companies in the performance marketing and market research space, including Dentsu and WPP Cantor, as well as Ernst & Young in New York and Ochsner Clinic Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, with much focus on data privacy, data regulation, compliance, internal auditing, and information security. And at every one of these industries and jobs, a significant data regulation was passed, and I was on the team responsible for reviewing and translating these new rules, working to see clarity and establishing a compliance program around them. And now for a brief background introduction, I'd like to pass the mic to my co-host today, Michael Peronto.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Really appreciate it. So my name is Michael Peronto. I'm the Director of Professional Services here at ActiveProspect. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've been in the CRM, contact center, and lead marketing space for over 13 years. I previously worked for CRM companies in the past, including Velocify and Shape Software. I've done large implementations of contact center softwares, including Five9 and NICE and Contact for companies that I've either worked for or done consulting work for. And some of my previous experience includes where I was the director of lead marketing for Cardinal Financial Company Limited Partnership, where I oversaw a multi-million-dollar monthly lead budget. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over down to Aru from BotSplash. So Aru, take it away.
Thanks so much, Ben, Mike, and ActiveProspect team. Thanks so much for having me on this panel today. I'm Aru Anavekar, and just a little bit about my background. I have been a software developer for a very long time, and I think I've reached the place where I'm more of a business owner now than writing code. So almost at that midsection of celebrating, I run business more than writing code. So been with companies like Wells Fargo and LendingTree in the past, started BotSplash, which is a SaaS platform for messaging and engagement in 2017. And what a pleasure it has been to meet folks like Michael and others in this industry. And God, this industry and its innovative needs are never ending. So it's always very challenging and encouraging to be in this space.
Great. Thank you, Aru, and looking forward to hearing your comments today. First, we have turned the calendar. It is July. So as we move to the second half of the year, I thought it was good to take a quick look back of what are the things that got us here, some significant developments over the past 6 months as we track towards those compliance efforts in the coming 6 months. So quick recap. The number one item was the FCC TCPA update. This was approved this past January. It was entitled Targeting and Eliminating Unlawful Text Messages, Advanced Methods to Target and Eliminate Unlawful Robocalls. Some of the major impacts from that was the one-to-one consent requirements. This has been known as, I call it the AKA, or what this announcement really related to, or has been known as the industry. Also included significant items there was new record-keeping requirements. So lead sellers and lead buyers, both needing to be in possession of evidence of the lead consent to contact transaction. And a new term was introduced, logical and topical. This is about website interaction and website purpose. This is focused on the consumer pathways and navigating sales and lead generation websites. Next was text messages are now affirmatively included in the national D&C program. So we're going to talk about text messaging today. And also, the FCC can now more easily demand mobile carriers and voice over IP number traffic blocked. This is about calls and call carriers and networks. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Key compliance deadline for that is January 27, 2025. But remember the 30, 60 day, 90 days prior. We're talking about the potentially applying retroactive consent. So not just that date, but the time periods right before that. The second significant item that happened, FCC TCPA update number 2, empowering consumers to block robocalls and robotexts. So this is approved in February. So this is also AKA called the revoking consent update. Major impacts, 2 of those updates revoking consent for regulated technologies, calls, or texts. So consumers are allowed to use, quote, any reasonable communication or words to say stop or opt out. It also requires companies to honor these do not call and revocation of consent requests as soon as possible and no more than 10 business days after receipt of the request. It also applies to marketing messages and for informational messages. Key deadline for that, well, that was indefinitely delayed, but my legal peers say circle October as a month which it could come back. The FCC can enforce that pretty promptly, so we're all staying tuned for that, but look at October as being a busy month. Significant update number 3, FCC TCPA update, implications of artificial intelligence or AI technologies protecting consumers from unwanted robocalls and robotexts. Headline was, FCC confirms that TCPA applies to AI technologies that generate human voices. This was announced in February. Key major impacts, the use of AI-generated voice in calling requires prior express written consent, right? So we're talking about your notice and opt-in language. The key deadline date for that, well, that was February 8th, so that has already passed. So make sure you check your notice and opt-out language now. It could be in place or maybe it's something that you need to add. And fourth, the FTC announces updates to the TSR, or telemarketing sales rules. 3 major impacts. Expanded record-keeping requirements or calling records. Some additional fields were required, including a record of consent to contact transaction, and the record retention period was from 2 years to 5 years. And the FTC can more clearly investigate and take action on deceptive B2B calls. This is something that they couldn't do before, business to business, so they made that very clear they can do that. Key deadline for that, October 15th, 2024. So that's coming up quite soon. So putting all of those together, here's a handy visual of a timeline of compliance dates that you should have on your calendar. I mentioned October is a busy month. I'm not even including the recent Medicare CMS updates about one-to-one consent. We're going to have a more detailed webinar about that coming up soon. Lots of legal developments about that, even into recent weeks. So now that sets the scene of everything we're dealing with and the compliance matters that we're going to be focusing on the next 6 months into 2025. And now transitioning to our topic today, innovative chat and tech solutions around sales and lead generation. So Aru, I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit more about BotSplash, its products, and how it intersects with these regulations and compliance efforts.
Thank you so much. So very high level, we are a SaaS platform, very similar to CRM. We work with multiple CRMs that are out there in the market. A few products that I'd love to highlight and open up is we majorly do texting, which is live text between agents and consumers, also with a bit of automation for document collection. We do live chat on landing pages as well as websites. We have social media chat, which is Facebook, Instagram, and other Google channels. And also we have an appointment scheduling product, which is called BookMe. So if you look at all of these, our goal is to make sure the prospects and leads that our customers and clients are working with, how they can open their brands to be more inbound rather than just doing call outs or sending emails. Can we position their brands out there so that consumers can reach out to them any time of the day using a channel that is most convenient for them and based on the day or time of the week, and reach out to them inbound so that they are getting the most value of the marketing spend that they are doing on these leads.
Yeah, so Aru, I'd really like to focus the discussion a little bit around your live chat and BookMe products that you mentioned. So, Can you tell our audience some reasons for why they should be using live chat and appointment booking tools like BookMe?
So one of the main reasons would be, we all know most of them that are in the audience on this webinar today are possibly buying leads from like a lead aggregator or a marketplace, where the consent, while is collected, might not be very clear for the person who's engaging in that conversation or trying to reach out to purchase certain services and products. So where we can help is having those consents re-verified and recollected on behalf of the brand. So if you're working on a marketplace and have a landing page, having that chat to say, yes, I do want to chat with someone from your brand, gives you, the brand, a higher level of confidence that this person has genuinely requested to work with me. Going back to BookMe, which is a scheduling app, and I'd like to mention, we are integrated with ActiveProspect on BookMe to collect those consents as well as record how these BookMe scheduling appointments are coming in. So that's another place, right? You don't want, a very common practice is people will take appointment booking links and fill out other people's name. So you don't want to reach into scenarios where you don't have proof that the person that is booking an appointment with you is not only in the CRM, but is also consenting the second time or third time that they want to reach out with you. Ben, you just mentioned all these FCC rules. One of the things people often forget is, especially when you're targeting like a database, whether it's through email or trying to bring back portfolio customers, sometimes in the past they may have opted out and your system still says they've opted out. So when you're using a live chat or when you're using a tool like BookMe and those customers want to reach out to you again, not only is that a fresh consent, you can also show that a new fresh consent was collected and continue those conversations. So most of our efforts are around not generating leads for you, but the leads that you generate, how can you maximize, convert, and close them efficiently?
Yeah, and Aru, I think you brought up some really, really good points there because, I used your product in the past, for a previous organization. And I found there were many, many different things with putting chat on your website that really benefited my organization. So as an example, we did see increase in overall conversion rates. So we were actually seeing less people bouncing from our pages and they were actually engaging directly with our chat. It really gave us an additional opportunity to try to allow that customer to ask questions. And then once they got comfortable with engaging with our organization, they viewed us as that expert. Then they were ready to proceed to move on to doing an application within the platform. We also saw, we had done some research in regards to the consumer experiences on websites. And, the younger generations are much more comfortable with engaging with chat today, so
it's like the Uber generation, right? You don't want to stop a taxi, you want it from the app. So
Yep. And, putting chat on your page gives them the flexibility to choose which channel they engage you with, right? So you can obviously have a form on the page for them to fill in. You could have a phone number on the page. You could have a booking link, BookMe link to have them set an appointment. But chat's just that additional channel that the customer can engage with your organization in order to convert. Do you have any sort of, tips or tricks that you've seen other companies use with live chat, Aru, that you can share?
Yes. So one would be just segregating and diversifying your audience. Many times people come to the website to understand and learn your brand. So when you have chat, especially after hours, they are more inclined to notice that chat, start a conversation. So you can have those chat to perform as your knowledge base. So it's a low intent customer. They want to understand more about your product. They want to understand your process. What kinds of documents are you collecting and all that. So notice at this time, you're just giving them information. You are not collecting their contact information, or they are not a lead that has contacted you successfully. The second example would be, you have purchased a lead from a marketplace, and now you have sent them emails, you have sent them contact information, but they have just not looked at those things. When they do look at those emails, having that signature say, hey, chat with a live agent, or our agents are always waiting for you to have a live chat, that also enhances the perception of the borrower saying, oh, I don't have to decline calls or block calls. I have the ability to reach out on my terms when it's convenient for me. That would be another reason where we are seeing increase in conversions or inbound traffic. The third example would be where these consumers don't really want to use a scanning device or take pictures or things of that sort, but would prefer to just upload documents directly. We are seeing a lot of consumers who feel like logging through a chat interface and uploading those documents and providing those documents is very beneficial for them. But of all things, I would say chat is most active between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. local time to consumers. And that's usually the time when no one thinks an agent should be available. So we've been able to tell our clients, keep your staff available at these times. If you don't have staff, at least have minimal responses that we can automate so that your customer is not frustrated and gone back.
Yeah, and some other things that I've seen live chat used for. So within like a sales organization, I used to use chat as a good way to train my newer agents. So as customers would go through, they'd engage the chat widget, they would have certain questions, and this would allow my newer members of my team to see those questions in writing. And if they ever had any sort of questions for it, as opposed to having to answer immediately, which is something that occurs on like a phone call type interaction, they can reference internal documentation, they can Slack other members of their team, and then from there get the right answer and engage with that customer. It also kind of gives them a good idea of some of the questions that the customers are going to ask, right? Because they're going to experience these on either live phone calls or email chains, etc. Live chat's a good way to do that. Some other things as well, I've found answering frequently asked questions from customers are very good to do through chat. So as an example, we would have customers who would engage within our website and they just need to know how they made a payment, right? Or how do they register for XYZ, etc. If you can put that in your tool as a menu option, the moment they expand the chat, they can choose the appropriate option and you can deliver information to them, as opposed to having them call in, leave a message. They may not get to anybody in that process. So I found with chat in general, it can be used for training. It can be used for sales. It can also be used to support your customers for the frequently asked questions that they had.
And two things, Mike, you reminded me of with the payments, right? You have the ability to use something like a lead distribution and send it to a support staff rather than sending it to a loan officer. I think some of the clients that we've spoken to or prospects that we've spoken to always have these leads or chats going to a marketing team, and then it all goes apart because marketing team does not have the answers that you need. And most times people want to use chat to escalate. So we've also seen scenarios where they are like, your loan officer isn't responding, can we have someone else to get this deal to closing? So having chat understand these scenarios and intents and distribute them accordingly is something else I think that's helpful. And to your note of knowledge base or training FAQs, it is unbelievable how much people like to type versus talk on the phone. So when consumers or borrowers are typing, you're inherently building a list of knowledge base for yourself and your brand that you can use to train the model with.
Yeah. And, there's also, your program offers integration with like social media messenger services as well. And it's really surprising because, with a lot of people think live chat is just live chat that's on your website or on your various landing pages, et cetera. But there's also tools that integrate with things like Facebook Messenger, et cetera, where customers, they have questions about their business. They want to ask those questions, and you should be using tools that directly integrate with those social media platforms. So that way, again, they can engage you in a channel that they feel very comfortable with. Now, I'd like to real quick segue into the BookMe product. Are there any recommendations or suggestions you have for the placement of a appointment setting link for a customer?
Absolutely, on every agent's signatures, because whether you're working with a client that is a lead in your system or you're just reaching out as a referral from someone else, having it on your loan officers or agents, sales agents' signatures is a must.
Yep.
Also, if you're working with third-party tools such as HubSpot or any email generation tools that you might be using with, making sure you either have a specific loan officer's link in there or a general book a meeting or appointment with my team kind of a link. Those two would be very crucial. We do work with clients where we are sending these as text messages from the agent themselves.
Yep.
Highly recommend when you're sending these as text messages to use like a URL shortener so that you're not losing track of tracking parameters, as well as a shorter URL is going to help it not break down, or it's going to be pretty and save the characters from it being a lengthy message. Highly recommend that. And your social media sites. If you're on TikTok, if you're very active on LinkedIn, or you're working with realtors and you've got a forum there, any place where you can provide a link to schedule an appointment with, highly recommend using those in there.
Yeah. And Aru, I think it's very interesting that, you brought up, sending a booking link through like text messages, et cetera. I'm a very, very big fan of incorporating a booking link within your contact strategy. So as an example, if you have consumers, they've gone through, they filled out that form, right? You may go through, you may call, text, and email them immediately, but then maybe that second message that you send includes the option for them to schedule an appointment directly with your team. It provides that customer a little bit more flexibility so they can say, hey, you know what, I am interested in your service. I want to book this, a meeting for either for today or tomorrow. They can see your availability and then directly book it. They get a confirmation text from it, and everybody knows that, hey, we're going to have this meeting later on today. So I think that's very, very important for people to take away. You should definitely be incorporating these BookMe links in your drip campaigns. You should have it in your email signatures. You should have it on your website. It could be a button, schedule an appointment with sales, whatever you want to put it. Definitely have that available on your website. It will help you to increase your conversions.
And just one other thing to add is, since BookMe is part of BotSplash, if the customer is already in your CRM or if they aren't, we continuously sync it. So if the customer is already in your CRM and they book an appointment, it's all synced up. You can see all past appointments, future appointments. If it's a new customer that just found you and wants to schedule time with you, we'll create that lead in your system. So it's not like you have to go through multiple systems and keep track of your customer.
Yep.
Yeah, and I when I learned about your solution and had some further discussions, I certainly thought it was very innovative, because I see the chat interactions from the consumer's perspective. It looks singular, but understanding that yours is a platform behind it, sort of really omni-channel, that allows the different communication mechanisms that can lead to back directly to chat, back to SMS, that can be pulling in from social media communications as well. And I thought that was certainly innovative. And like you just mentioned, not just to a salesperson, but more deep conversations or things that are more complex, because that's what I think chat is also interesting about. I'm less likely to make a phone call if I know it's a really complicated transactions. I want to break it into bite-sized pieces, but I know I can do that in a chat mechanism, because the time period is longer, not just a singular time that can make a phone call. So that it's certainly really, really interesting in this mechanism and innovative to add to your lead gen and sales pathway for this. So with that, Aru, if you can provide us some things that we should be thinking about from a compliance perspective related to chat and appointment scheduling tools that you see from your tools use.
So a couple of things, right? Consent is the main one. You're definitely going to make sure that consent, even if you are putting a footer there with a disclaimer saying, hey, you you fill this appointment, you're consenting. It doesn't hurt us to collect consent multiple times along the way than not having a consent at all. So what some of the things we've made available for our clients is to stay in regulations with the SIPA law. We make sure our clients can customize our chat widgets to say, hey, you're being recorded, even from the very start. Even before an interaction starts, the customer or client knows that whatever they type in going forward is going to be recorded and will have a log of it. The second thing that we help is some of our clients want disclosures at the very start. Some of them want it below a form if PII is getting collected. Some of them want it with a checkbox so that they know customers have read it. We also support privacy links within the chat widget itself, along with the disclosures. Just some of the things where even when we are working with ActiveProspect and that recording is replayed, you don't want to have a place where the disclosures, compliance, uh, anything that had to be said and disclosed wasn't being shown or disclosed. So we make sure that our clients have at multiple levels, right? We make it available at the brand level, we make it available at the branch level, we also make it available for each individual loan officer's level, because some of our clients want to disclose if you're on a book me page for a particular loan officer, John, they want to disclose all the states that John is licensed for. So based on what our client needs are, we make it available for them so that anything that is compliant and regulatory, there is a way to disclose it so that their risk is mitigated with those things. Same things apply for chat and BookMe. They can say, I want these displayed everywhere. I want it displayed only when you're collecting PII information. So consent and making sure disclaimers are displayed are the two main things.
Yeah, and Aru, I think it's really interesting that you brought up the capturing of consent because, as an example with booking links, as an example, we have some situations where that link may be passed to a different consumer who may not have originated from a form. And so it's important that on those booking links that it actually has disclosure language that's saying, hey, you are providing express written consent. They can type in all their things before they actually submit it. Same thing with chat. With chat, I've seen a lot of companies where through the chat widget, as the customer goes through, they choose the selection to chat with an agent. Prior to them chatting with that agent, they actually have to fill out a small form where they provide their contact information. They check a box. It lists that TCPA disclosure, and then they submit it. So that way that's all captured and you have the expressed written consent. Are there anything else from a chat perspective? I'd be interested to know, is there any sort of compliance solutions that you offer for agents when they are speaking with customers from your live chat widget?
Yeah. So far what we discussed was mainly consumers being aware what that experience will be, what's happening to their PII and all that thing. From the internal perspective, some of the things that we can enable for our clients is PII suppression. So say, for example, the customer comes in and they are putting out information. This is my date of birth. This is my credit card, run an appraisal or whatever it is. If our clients do not want such information to be collected or recorded, we have options where we'll just mask these up. It will not be saved in our records. It will not be saved on our client side of things. The agents will not see this information. It will all be masked and will inform the borrower saying that, hey, you cannot provide this information. Am I still there?
Yep, you're still here.
Okay, it's showing me the connection was interrupted. So, right.
Oh, looks like that she dropped there for a second. So, kind of to continue a little bit here on Aru's point, when you are using chat tools, it's important that those tools have the option to encrypt PII information. You should have something that either hashes it out when you're looking at the transcript. There's also some things from a live chat perspective that you should consider as well. I'm a big fan of canned messages. So if there are certain situations where you are chatting with a customer and there's certain legal language that you have to relay to them, using canned responses within tools for live chat and live texting can greatly enhance your ability to be compliant, because it's very difficult, when a salesperson's going through, they're typing with a customer, having a conversation, for them to retain and actually go, okay, well, I need to make sure I say these legal languages. Use those canned responses. They can be very helpful for customers. In addition to that, canned responses can also be used for just general support purposes, right? We talked about in the beginning where if a customer is going through chat and they have a need for something, they may get to one of your support agents and they have a question. And as opposed to having a support agent actually type in, a paragraph with all the information or have all those links available, utilize those canned messages that are available to you. So that way it can speed up the conversation and really just save everybody time and get the customer the information that they need. So
can you hear me back?
We can hear you now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So continuation, thanks, Mike, for filling that in. So one of the things is canned messages can be audited by the companies, so they can continuously see what kind of canned messages are being used. And we also have features within the platform where companies can say, I don't want the agents asking certain questions, or put restrictions as if my agent is providing an APR, they should also provide a rate. So these kind of compliance and regulation tools on the backends can be built within the system. That way, the enterprise has full visibility of what all conversations happened. You don't have your agents using their personal phones or trying to have side conversation. Everything is at one place.
Yep. And that's, honestly, that's fantastic compliance information that you just provided there, Aru. And it's important that your tools have that available to them. So ActiveProspect also does have some different products that are available that can really help our audience with their compliance needs. I'm going to go through here a couple of them. So let's go ahead. First of all, we have ActiveProspect's Trusted Form. Now, this is obviously our TCPA compliance tool that we have available, which includes, we have Certify, which is what allows you to generate certificates. And then off to the right, you will see that we have Verify, Retain, and Insights. So we're first going to start here with the Certify product. So Certify is really what we have available. That it's a script that you can put on your website, and this generates the Trusted Form certificate. It's secure, so it's independent and a trusted third party. We don't share any of the information we gather with anybody. It has great performance, so it's not going to put any sort of major latency on your pages or anything like that. And we have over a decade of experience with generating these certificates and providing reliable lead authentication. The next product we have is Retain. So with the Retain product, this is basically where once you've generated your certificates, you have to store those certificates within the ActiveProspect platform. So we store all the certificates for up to 5 years. If you need a longer duration, we have the ability to do that. These certificates will have a full session replay, so it shows the consumer actually going through, filling out the form. It has a shareable URL, so if there's some situation where you have a TCPA complaint, you can share that with your attorney for your defense. And in addition, we can also match the data that's present on the form with the lead that is stored. I'm going to real quick show you a quick example of what a Trusted Form certificate looks like. So if you see here on the screen, what a Trusted Form certificate has is a couple key points to it. You'll see here at the top, it says, when did they visit? It shows you the date and time of the visit. It'll show you where they visited, so what landing page that customer came from. It shows who visited, which includes the IP address, location, the machine that they may have came from. We have a session replay, so that actually shows a live playback of what that customer did when they were filling out the form on the landing page. And you will also see at the bottom of the certificate the consent language that is detected. So as an example, when that customer is going through, they are filling out their form, we actually will capture what that disclosure language is and have that present in the certificate. There are also some additional information pieces that are on the certificate, including an event log and a history that are available, but they just are not present within this slide. So one of the products that we have as well is called Trusted Form Insights. Now, what Trusted Form Insights is basically as the consumer, they're going through, they're on the page, we are actually capturing some additional information that can be helpful for you to measure for lead conversion purposes, as well as for lead routing and lead scoring purposes. This can include things like the original domain, the IP address, the lead age, how long they were on the page, the form input method, etc. Many of our customers use these kinds of data points to help their lead scoring algorithm, as well as use it for reporting. Then another product we have is called Trusted Form Verify. Now, Verify is a new product that we have released that allows you to monitor the disclosures that are present on these lead forms. So, as an example, when you are buying leads from a third-party provider, that third-party provider will have the trusted form script on their page, which will generate that certificate. At the bottom of that form, you will see the disclosure language. We actually capture that disclosure language and we store it in our disclosure language manager. Within the disclosure language manager, you have the ability to review the disclosures and approve or deny them. Then, using our other product called Lead Conduit, which I'm going to cover here in just a minute, you can actually make live rejection decisions if those disclosures on those landing pages do not meet your compliance threshold. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next slide here. Another product that we have is called Lead Conduit. Now, the Lead Conduit tool is actually something that I've used many, many times in the past. I was funneling thousands of leads through the Lead Conduit platform before I actually worked at ActiveProspect. Really what Lead Conduit is it's a platform that sits in between where your leads are generated, and this can be either from your landing pages, third-party providers, etc., and your CRM platform. It is really used to help you filter or enhance the data and then reject leads that do not meet your specific criteria. From a compliance perspective, what Lead Conduit offers is many, many different tools and enhancements that are available to you. Number one, the most important one, we have a known litigator check. So obviously there are many, many different litigators that are out there. They're going online, they're filling out that form. They're trying to basically trigger a TCPA lawsuit. The way that I think about this is that you do not want those leads to hit your CRM at all. So using the Lead Conduit tool in conjunction with a known litigator check, what it does is basically when that lead hits Lead Conduit, we check against a known litigator database. If the information matches, we actually will just reject it. So you don't intake that record into your CRM. You don't even want it to hit it. We also offer a neuro fraud check. So we check information in regards to that consumer to see if it's not something like a bot that filled it in, etc. Through Lead Conduit as well, we can check to see if the trusted form certificate is a real certificate. We can do some additional checks in regards to inside information. And then the last point over here off to the right includes Trusted Form Verify. So if you receive a record where the disclosures do not meet your thresholds that are set within your approved disclosure list, you can actually live reject that lead and because it doesn't meet your disclosure standards. Lead Conduit also has integrations that help you with acquisition and distribution of leads. So we integrate with many, many, many different lead providers that are in the space, as well as many different form building tools that are available to you. It's really, really easy to set up sources and use them within the Lead Conduit platform. We have some instances where, we have pre-built integrations for certain sources. You come to us, we can go ahead and make that configuration for you, and it's really easy to set up in the platform. Then once we are done, we can actually deliver that over to your CRM platform easily. We offer some lead optimization services as well. So what I use for lead optimization services, I've used this in the past, so I'll just give you some things that I've done. Number one, I always check to see if the phone number is a valid phone number. There are tools that are available within Lead Conduit to check that phone number. And if it's not a real phone number, you may want to consider either rejecting that lead or putting it down a different path within the Lead Conduit platform. We have email validation tools. So if the email address is not a valid email address, that may be something where you reject that lead or you send it to somewhere else. There are demographic information that you can append to it. So you can show, what is the credit profile within the general area of that consumer, and you can make routing decisions and things based off of that. So let me just give you a real quick visual example here of an example of a lead conduit flow. So over here off to the right, you capture the raw lead data, right? The first thing you may want to do is confirm if it's contactable or not. So as an example, check for the phone number, check if it's a valid email address, etc. Number two, check if it's a duplicate. A lot of people find significant value in the lead conduit tool, because if you have a lead, let's say you bought a lead today, and then you receive the same lead the next day or 2 days later, that may be something that you want to live reject. So we have customers who use the lead conduit tool to reject duplicate records within a very short period of time. We also have customers who, if the lead doesn't meet their ideal customer profile. So as an example, let's say you have a third-party scoring engine. You may choose to do an integration with that scoring engine, score the lead, and if that record has a very, very low propensity to close, maybe that's something that you may route to a training team or reject it, or maybe to a third-party call center to do some additional screening questions on that record within your platform. And then once it goes through all of your checks, then it's a qualified record. And then that's when you would submit it into your CRM system. So if any of these products are of interest to you, or if you want to get a demo of these products, we're going to have a poll that's off to the right here. And again, if you have any sort of interest, just go ahead and mark the appropriate selection within those polls.
Okay, great. Yeah, so please take a look at that poll if you'd like to be interested in hearing more about ActiveProspect's trusted form of lead conduit products. This will help us break that down, and we look forward to seeing everyone's responses to that soon. Now I'd like to segue briefly the conversation in relation to phone carriers and consent, as there's been a lot of discussion about this recently. Even in our one of our recent webcasts, I believe this was episode 10, we digged into that a little bit deeper. The FCC and FTC, with everything that I announced in the beginning, you can see the themes. They really want to stop robocalls and robotexts. Obviously, that's very clear. But what we want to inform everyone is that these things are happening today by the carriers. Even before some of these things are enforced, they're actively looking at things because they are pressuring those carriers to clean up their networks, to not allow inappropriate and unlawful communications to come through. So we've been seeing rules adapted by the regulatory agencies and the carriers carrying these things out, including things like capturing and recorded consent. They want to see if that mechanism is in place. So these are things they're looking at in your communication and mechanisms, and looking at your web pages if that's being offered. Yep. Is there a revocation of consent? Can the consumers opt out? They want to make sure that they're lowering the volumes of robocalls and robotexts that are traversing their networks, that the FCC and FTC get numerous complaints that a person says, yep, I signed up for something and now I'm getting volumes of calls. Removing unwanted traffic sources or companies that have high opt-out rates. And there's even been some phone carriers that have been shut down because they're not complying with these notices from regulatory agencies. So the key point is that these things are being looked at now, even though the rules, because there's a whole other set of rules if you're a carrier in a network that are implied by these things. We're talking about more the lead generation side and providing the one-to-one consent. They have a lot of technical components to do. That's their responsibility for monitoring their network. And you want to make sure you don't get tripped up by that and following the compliance rules in this space.
Yeah, and Ben, I think, it's very, very important for our audience to understand that, if you were a couple years ago, the texting there, you could pretty much text all the time. There was not as many regulations around it, et cetera. But now the carriers are really, really cracking down on this. The last 6 months, we've seen a lot of activity from these phone carriers when it came to monitoring the messaging, proof of consent, et cetera. And that's very, very important. So Aru, I have a question for you. So obviously you've been dealing a lot with, these different carriers that are out there in regards to text messaging. So what are the risks involved with doing nothing in preparation for the FCC's one-to-one consent in regards to the text messaging channel specifically? What are some consequences for not doing it, et cetera?
Absolutely. So before getting to that response, I think I want to separate what FCC is saying and what the things that FTC is doing, because a lot of times from our prospects and clients, we get a pushback saying, oh, the rule is not valid until Jan 2025.
Yeah.
So just for the audience to understand, yes, FCC has a rule saying, which will be active Jan 25th, 2025, saying you have to show consent if you get audited or whatever those reasons be, right?
Yeah.
In preparation of that, FTC has informed all carriers and um, businesses that work with these carriers that as of Jan 1st, 2024, they have to clean up and see what bad traffic looks like. They have to set up rules in place so that when a brand comes for either getting consent or verification, 10DLC as it is called, for calling or texting, those brands have specific things in place already. Things like on the website, you should have privacy statement and terms and conditions page. They have to be separate. Why such rules have come forth, no one knows who's made these rules, but there's a list of 9 bullet items that should be on your website. The second important thing is you should have a page specifically saying what your SMS terms for the brand are. You have to include things like I will support help, I will support stop, what your uh, do not text, do not call rules look like, what is unsubscription. So there's a bullet of like 9 things that you're needed to have. As of late, if you do not have these things on your website, on your brand, carriers will not allow you to call or text from your brand. Please make note, all of these carriers are looking at these rules and your brand, and they are tying it to your EIN, which is the tax ID. So in the past, what customers used to do is they'll buy a bunch of phone numbers, let it run, let it get the reputation run out. The campaign is suspended, they'll go buy another set of phone numbers. So now you no longer can do it because your EIN is tied to the campaign. If you're suspended, every carrier out there knows that this EIN had a campaign that was bad. Even if you go back to get a new campaign, your legacy and your bad act will carry on with you. So coming back to not doing anything, I would say the biggest risk of not picking up the right ways of communication would be a long-term loss of your reputation. Every business, just as consumers have credit scores, every business has a business credit score, which the carriers run a background check on. And based on that score and that reputation and your past behaviors of texting and calling, they will allow you daily limits of how many texts, how many calls you can or cannot make weekly and all these. So if you're using any platform, if it's you're working with BotSplash, you're working with some other provider, you're working with Five9, no company is going to have a place where they'll say, oh, your score is 19, you can only send 200 text messages a day. The 201, we're going to suppress it. But what's going to happen is the carriers themselves will know you have so far sent 200 messages. I am not going to deliver upcoming messages. So not following the rules only hurts on conversion, because if you don't deliver that text message, you are not going to get a response back. The customer will never know you sent a text message. The second thing that you want to stay on top of things is the opt-out rates. Carriers are very strict in managing opt-out rates. Like if you send 100 text messages, the limit they will let you is 2 people can opt out. So just imagine all the leads that you're purchasing, all these customers that you're reaching out to and doing mass text messages, or reaching out to your older database and sending mass text messages. If the consumer is not expecting that text from your brand, they are going to opt out. They are going to report you as junk. And that is going to, in turn, reduce your credit score. It's going to bring down your reputation. And the carriers will automatically turn your calling services and text services off. Just a note, we don't do calling, but we have heard of scenarios where customers, our clients' calling services have been turned off because they were using automated voice drops. So You cannot use automated voice drops, especially when you're doing outbound. If it's an inbound, it's fine. You can welcome them with an automated message. If you're doing outbound, do not use automated voice drops. And carriers give you 5 days. You cannot provide them with proof within 5 days and get your campaign up and running. If you're ever fully suspended, a partial suspension goes up till 2 weeks, where they'll collect information from you, provide you information, give you the time to work it out, but you're still suspended. You cannot send text message or call for those 2 weeks. And a second offense from the carrier is a permanent suspension. You lose the phone numbers that you're working with. So now if your customers are trying to call that number or they're texting you back, it's a one-way text coming in. You cannot respond back. So it is not worth for a business to take these short-term risks to increase their response rate, when the long-term risk of completely getting shut down for 2 to 3 weeks is the loss of it is much higher.
Yeah, and I think it's, when I look at the points that you made, I think really there's some key points here to take away from your items. Number one is when you're going through, you're registering for texting originally, you're going to fill out a form to register for 10DLC. Once you fill out that form, that's presented to the carriers. The carriers actually go and review your landing page. So they're going to look at your site. They're going to look for the privacy policy, the terms and conditions, the form, et cetera, make sure it meets their standards. From an opt-out perspective, it is very, very, very important that you are constantly reporting on your opt-out rates. If you are hitting a certain threshold, you could be blocked from those carriers. Your text messages don't get delivered, which can be devastating to your long-term conversion. A third point, which you kind of hinted at a little bit, which is really where you should be treating your leads as people to an extent. So you shouldn't be blast texting leads that are 100 days old. You want to really think about texting leads within a reasonable time of that record submission, and then making sure that the messaging that they receive it falls in line with what they saw on the form. So basically, you don't want to be sending text message content that has nothing to do with the product that they're interested in. You should practice campaign segmentation, deliver those targeted messages to a smaller audience, so that way you are trying to reduce your overall opt-out rate. Real quick here, I'd like to move into some questions. So we're just going to go through one or two here from the audience. So Aru, I've got a question for you from the audience. It says, what's your thoughts on live chat versus automatic chat or AI-powered chat? Do people care if there's a real person behind the chat?
So the way I respond to that is, yes, people care based on the domain, intent, and the use case. So if I'm coming to understand and learn more about ActiveProspect, I don't care who's giving me the responses from the backend. But if I'm coming to ActiveProspect, I'm a live customer with ActiveProspect, and I need to find out information, or my system isn't working as expected, then I do want a live person or a guaranteed person. Same thing with sales, right? If you're working with insurance agents, or if you're working with a mortgage loan officer and you're 3 months far off from getting that loan or buying that insurance policy, they're just checking you out if you would be a right partner for them. Mm-hmm. An AI bot is just fine. Whereas if they need a policy within a week, and if they are very high intent, they would rather talk to a live person or schedule a call or give them the options based on their need and requirement, than choosing between which one is best utilized. So it depends on those three factors.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question here. I'll fill this, or Aru, if you want to do it, that's totally fine. So it says, my vertical is an older market. How do you overcome the hurdle of getting people to start a live chat if they weren't expecting that as an option? So this question is actually something that, I pondered because, with the products that I sold to demographics of all age groups, right? And really my take on this is that live chat is a tool that is available on your site if a customer wants to use it, but it shouldn't be the only channel that's available to your customers. You should also have the ability for them to call in. You should also have the ability for them to email. You may have a form for them to submit their information for support. It's kind of an all-inclusive type of strategy. But what I found with live chat is it's really helped customers who they may have questions. They may not feel comfortable with calling in or necessarily filling out a form to start. And they want to go through and ask your company some questions, whether it's for support reasons or for questions about your products. And then once you gain their trust, then they are ready to progress forward with an application. Aru, do you have anything else to fill in, or is that good?
The only thing I would add is always experiment with animations with the chat. Like if they are on 80% of your screen, if they're moving slow or might leave your site, have the ability to open up the chat or pop a question. That usually gets the attention. They can decline the experience of it, but at least have that as an option, so that if you feel it's a demographic that might view things only when it's visible and open, that might be something to experiment with.
Okay. And I just have one last question here from the crowd. This one's actually one for you, Aru. This is specific to your product. It says, are you integrated with Salesforce? What CRMs are you currently integrated with?
So we have about 35 different integrations: Freshdesk, Salesforce, Follow-Up Boss. Yes, we are integrated in Salesforce. We are not a managed app, but an unmanaged app. So you don't have to have two different views or screens. We will be available within Salesforce itself.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Aru, thank you very much for contributing today. It was a really good conversation, and thanks for telling us more and all our audience about Boss Splash and the services and the true compliance nature of what we have. I mean, words like notice and consent are key to my heart as a privacy and compliance officer perspective. They're not just check the line items. I know that's what they translate to, but they're critical and very important, particularly when you get in legal matters. So it's important to make sure you recognize those and implement them into your programs. So last poll right quick. If you're interested to learn more about Active Prospects here, please let us know. Our next episode is going to be in August, so look forward to that one. Actively planning that one now in August and September content as well. Would also like to give a quick plug out to REACH, the Responsible Enterprises Against Consumer Harassment. This is our industry association. You can find out more about them at reachmbc.com. We'll provide a link here as well, and also some information and LinkedIn about the responsible entities as consumer harassment, all about REACH, really. For events coming up, July is going to be also a busy month. Look for me at the Troutman Amen Law Conference of Champions, Monday, July 15th in Los Angeles. It's one day of presentations from legal experts at Troutman Amen and and industry colleagues, really, all discussing all things TCPA and related lead generation, legal, and compliance focus. There's some limited number of tickets that have just been released, so make sure you check that out at lawconferenceofchampions.com. And also there is some virtual attendance if you're not able to attend in person. Also later in July, 29th and 30th, look for Active Prospect at the Affiliate Summit East in New York City. Tickets are still available. That's at affiliatesummit.com/East. We'll share a link here as well. And I'm happy to share that Active Prospect is up for 2 industry peer awards this year: Compliance Company of the Year and Most Innovative Company. Thank you very much. Great. Aru, thank you very much. Michael, always a really good conversation, and glad everyone gets to see and observe us talk through these topics. So thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good week.
Thank you all.